Hey everyone, in today's video, we're going to take a deep dive into the upcoming weather pattern. And while there will be some opportunities for snowfall, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Things are looking a little less optimistic for snow in the eastern states compared to what I discussed in yesterday's video. That said, there's still parts of the country that should keep an eye out for some winter weather. I think the northern plains, upper Midwest, and Great Lakes region will continue to have some solid chances for snow, especially as we track several strong low pressure systems moving through the plains and the Midwest. So while warmer than average conditions will dominate, we definitely won't be entirely done with wintry weather just yet, at least not for these northern areas. Meanwhile, the western United States is shaping up to be quite the opposite. The West is going to stay cold, snowy, and persistently stormy, with a steady stream of active weather systems bringing plenty of precipitation and lower than average temperatures. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button like this video and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. All right, let's get back to weather. When we take a look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, and just so you know, these maps always come out in the evening, so we're looking at the one from the previous day. We see that this particular outlook runs from March 11th through the 15th. During this time frame, there's a clear pattern setting up. The western United States is dominated by very cold temperatures. This is what we call a negative Pacific North American oscillation, or negative PNA. And when we see a negative PNA like this, it often forces warmth into the central and eastern states. Exactly what's happening in this setup. A most intense warmth is going to settle over a swath of the country running from parts of the plains through the southern Ohio Valley and Tennessee Valley, extending into portions of the northern Southeast and the Mid-Atlantic. This area will be the true heart of the warmth from the 11th through the 15th, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see upper 60s, 70s, and maybe even the first 80s of the year in some of the southernmost locations. Spring is definitely getting off to an early and enthusiastic start across much of the eastern U.S. pressing. As this warmth builds, it's also going to lead to increased precipitation and storm activity. The combination of warmer temperatures and rising humidity is the perfect recipe for thunderstorms. And that's exactly what we're expecting as these low pressure systems initially develop over the western U.S. A lot of these lows won't even make their way fully eastward. Instead, they tend to track northward into the northern plains and Midwest. This pattern dumps tons of precipitation on the western states and sets the stage for severe weather when those systems eventually interact with warm, moist air in the central and eastern parts of the country. We'll likely see a lot of cold fronts setting up along these lows, and those fronts will be key drivers of thunderstorm and shower activity moving eastward. And we shift to the 8 to 14-day temperature outlook, which runs from March 13th through the 19th. We see the same negative PNA pattern continuing in the west, but this time the warmth in the eastern U.S. becomes more focused on the southern states, with the core of the warmest temperatures still sitting over the mid-Atlantic and the southeast. And meanwhile, the further north you go, the better the chances for colder conditions and even snowfall, particularly in the northern plains, upper Midwest, and northern Great Lakes regions. It's going to be one of those setups where the contrast between warm and cold air masses creates plenty of instability. And that means not only the potential for snow up north, but also a higher risk for thunderstorms and severe weather across parts of the central and southern states. In terms of precipitation, this pattern paints a pretty clear picture. The western U.S. remains far above average, with persistent storm systems bringing both rain and heavy mountain snowfall. In the eastern and central states, the outlook is more mixed. We'll see some regions running below average, while others get well above average precipitation. The Ohio Valley and parts of the southeast stand out as areas likely to see the most rainfall over this period. As we move through the days ahead, the back and forth battle between warm and cold air masses will keep driving active weather across the country. Early next week, warmth will surge northward across the central and eastern states, with temperatures climbing into the 60s, 70s, and even 80s in some areas. At the same time, the West will stay locked in a pattern of cold and stormy conditions. By midweek, we'll see another major storm system taking shape in the West, bringing heavy snowfall to the Rockies, Sierra Nevada, and Cascades, along with significant rainfall for the lower elevations and coastal areas. Later in the week, the setup becomes even more intense. A powerful low-pressure system is expected to develop over the central U.S., likely over Nebraska, with a pressure reading around 974 millibars, an incredibly strong low for this time of year and location. This system will drag a warm front far to the north, creating extended cold front behind it and setting the stage for a significant severe weather threat across the Ohio Valley and Tennessee Valley. We'll also see the potential for heavy snowfall on the cold side of this system, particularly across the northern plains and upper Midwest on the snow side. The westerners also got hit pretty hard. The Sierras, the central and southern Rockies, they all saw decent snowfall. And then there was that blizzard up in the Midwest, northern Wisconsin, southeast Minnesota, northern Iowa. Some spots saw over 6 inches of snow. Before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. So where do we go from here? Now, that big low pressure system is finally moving off the East Coast. So that's out of the picture for now. But we're starting to see a west-southwest flow aloft reestablished, which means temperatures are going to gradually warm up heading into the weekend and into next week. If we take a look at the temperature map, you'll notice a lot of blue and green. Those are your below normal temps. The orange and red, those show above normal temps. And right now there's still a lot of blue hanging around, especially across the Midwest and the Central Plains. That tight temperature gradient creates what's known as a baroclinic zone. And that's where low pressure systems love to ride. That's exactly why we often see snow on the northern side and rain or even severe weather on the southern side. Yeah. As we wrap up the work week, we'll see that next piece of energy moving in from the west that's going to bring heavy snow to the central and southern Rockies. Even places like northern Arizona and northwestern New Mexico will see some snow. So by Thursday night and Friday morning, a band of snow will set up from southern South Dakota into northern Nebraska and western Iowa. Places like Omaha and Des Moines will likely see a wintry mix at first, but as colder air moves in overnight, that's going to switch over to all snow. And yes, accumulations are expected. If you're in places like Milwaukee, Rockford, Chicago, Fort Wayne, or Grand Rapids, expect some snow and rain mix through Friday morning and into the afternoon. It could definitely impact your morning commute, so be ready for that. Snowfall totals will add up pretty fast. We're talking several inches for parts of the Rockies and at least a few inches from southern South Dakota into central Iowa. Even Chicago's western suburbs could see some snow, maybe up to a couple of inches. Further east, places like Detroit and Toledo will probably see less than an inch. As we head into the weekend, colder air sticks around, but we'll also see some warmer air pushing into the Pacific Northwest. That's going to shift the storm track a little further south. Another piece of energy is going to roll through the Four Corners region, bringing more snow to the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles, parts of southwest Kansas, and even northern Arizona for North Texas. We'll see rain and some strong storms on Saturday. And those storms will continue pushing east into the Gulf Coast and North Florida by Sunday. And now let's talk about the severe weather threat. As we head into Saturday, March 8th, there's a low-end severe weather risk across East Texas, Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southwest Alabama, and maybe the far western Florida panhandle. We're mainly looking at gusty winds up to 60 MP, quarter-sized hail, and possibly even a few brief tornado spin-ups. Cities like Houston, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Mobile. Keep an eye on this system. By Sunday, the severe weather threat diminishes a bit, but we could still see some heavy rainfall and flash flooding across southern Georgia, southeast Alabama, and especially North Florida. Just taking a step back and looking at next week's forecast, March 10th through March 14th, things get even more interesting. We're expecting a major warm-up east of the Rockies, while the west cools down significantly thanks to a big trough digging in. For Californians, get ready for rain. Central and Southern California, you've been waiting on moisture, and you're finally going to get it. We're also going to see mountain snow ramp up across the Four Corners region and the Rockies. Midweek, a stronger system moves in, bringing heavy snow to the Sierras and more rain to Southern California. This storm could even bring 2 inches per hour snowfall rates in the higher elevations. By late next week, the Central US will see a strengthening low pressure system, possibly as strong as 987 MB. That's the type of system that can bring significant severe weather, heavy rain, and even another blizzard. We'll see moisture being pulled up from the Gulf, creating a warm sector ahead of the system. This sets the stage for severe thunderstorms potentially including tornadoes, damaging winds, and large hail. And on the cold side, blizzard conditions are possible from the Dakotas into Minnesota and northern Iowa. Finally, as we move into late March, we'll need to watch the sudden stratospheric warming event and the potential for a polar vortex disruption. This could push cold Arctic air down into North America, Europe, or Asia. Here won't be as extreme as the deep freezes we see in January, but we could still be looking at chilly temperatures with highs in the 30s and 40s and lows in the teens. A lot is happening over the next couple of weeks, and I'll be right here keeping you informed every step of the way. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss an update. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. And as always, if you have questions or comments, drop them down below. I read them all and I'll do my best to respond. Thanks so much for watching. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next update.